Assalamu alaikum. This is lecture 27 of Advanced Cost and Management Accounting. The topic that we have been discussing is cost management in general. We have seen that cost management is being exercised by most people on most occasions. Whatever people are doing, all activities have some kind of cost implication or another. So cost management is very simple to understand that there is a need to manage the cost. In the previous lecture, we have looked at various techniques which are different to the traditional technique. We said the traditional technique was to contain costs. Under that technique, a plan or a budget was set out at the start of the period, and the idea during the year was to try to control costs according to the budget. So there was some action taken whenever costs were seen to be exceeding the planned amount. And this we regarded as cost containment rather than cost reduction. The emphasis of cost management is now increasingly becoming and leaning towards cost reduction rather than cost containment. Pressures on costs and profits are increasing, and in recent times, the financial environment is such that costs are putting pressures on most businesses, and new thoughts and new techniques are being practiced to find ways, identify ways of reducing cost and making it more efficient. Yet at the same time, there should be no effect on the quality of the product, because as time goes on and consumers are becoming more and more aware of what is available globally, the focus on quality of the product keeps increasing, the focus on customer satisfaction keeps increasing. Managing costs, therefore, is an essential and important aspect of managing and controlling a good business. We have referred to new techniques such as the life cycle costing, and we looked at target costing, and these were different ways in which costs are being analyzed and looked at in the current environment to bring about efficiencies, cost reductions, and enhance profitability. Similarly, we are going to examine today the concept of value engineering. These are all similar type of concepts. In the last lecture, we also looked at the tear-down analysis, or which was referred to as reverse engineering. In that, we said the product is dismantled into its various parts, and processes are identified in which the product has been produced. And therefore, efficiencies and improvements are brought about, and the product's quality is improved. At the same time, attempt to reduce the cost. Similarly, value engineering is also a concept where the idea is to look at the engineering of the product and to find ways in which you can increase the value and reduce the cost. This is the challenge. This is what businesses are faced with. This is what businesses are currently doing. Let's look at the slide. Value engineering, known as value analysis, is a systematic examination of cost of a product. Aim is to devise means of achieving standard quality and reliability at the target cost. So we are trying to look at the cost of the product in a systematic way and break it down and look at the different aspects of this product and find ways and means of repeating them and looking at the competitors' products and trying to find our own quality and own opportunity to improve the cost and quality of the product. These days, a lot of the manufacturing in the world is being done in China. China is regarded as the manufacturer of the world. very often buyers and manufacturers and consumers of Chinese goods find that they have available the same product in different qualities and therefore also at different prices. So the same product can be purchased at a higher price as well as a lower price. The expectation follows that when you pay a higher price, the quality, the reliability, the functionality of the product is going to be better. At the same time, you can have the same kind of product at a lower cost. Of course, at the lower cost, the reliability and the functionality might not be the same. Nevertheless, this is the result of value engineering being conducted in China on a wide scale, on a fairly large scale. The Chinese manufacturers, therefore, are examining the products and then they are dismantling them and identifying ways of A, reducing the cost, and B, where necessary, eliminate the functions that do not carry value. So this is generally the idea of value engineering. And very often in our own country, we will find this being practiced in the auto workshop areas. Our auto mechanics have to be credited with their skill and innovation of being able to produce and replicate certain parts, especially with the older vehicles. Where the vehicles are old, spare parts are harder to obtain as they may no longer be manufactured by the manufacturer. But where an old car requires some part, very often you will find that our auto mechanics can examine the part, dismantle it, and try to provide a solution, to try to provide a replacement, sometimes by use and modeling of the lathe machines, where they are designed and a new part is produced and it is going to work and provide the function of the older part. The appearance and the materials used may not be as sophisticated and as refined, but they will perform the function. So this is also value engineering. Engineering to provide the value which satisfies the customer and also reduces the cost. So we are saying that this is achieved by identifying improved product design with reduced cost, eliminating unnecessary functions that increase product cost for which customers are not prepared to pay. So now the idea, therefore, of value engineering is to improve the product design. And the improvement is brought about by examining a product of the competition and to see how competitors are doing and producing the products. It saves time, it saves perhaps a lot of cost, and it provides you the opportunity to provide products as the same as the competitors. In this process, the attempt is also made to try to eliminate the functions which may not have the same value to the customer, which again will be the result of market research, of customer behavior, and all those studies which will provide what customers value and what are the things that customers don't value. An example that comes to mind in our country of where this value engineering is being practiced for a very, very long time is the manufacture of weapons in the frontier. This has gone on for a long time, where the manufacturers, the small manufacturers in the frontier can dismantle the weapons and they can examine the functionalities, and then at a very low cost they can reproduce the same weapon with pretty much the same kind of functions and nearly the same kind of accuracy. So this is a a way to understand the concept of value engineering, that you try to take the existing product and you analyze how it is composed of, and you try to provide the same value at a lower cost. And that then can be taken in the ambit of cost management, of providing better profitability and reducing the cost. Value engineering requires the use of functional analysis. This involves decomposing the product into its elements or attributes. For example, in automobiles, functions might consist of style, comfort, reliability, attractiveness, etc. Surveys are conducted to determine the price customers are willing to pay for the various attributes. The automobile industry is something which has a lot of sensitivities in the market. Many people have great fondness for different styles and different types of automobiles. So the manufacturers, therefore, are paying a lot of attention and a lot of focus on what the customers need. And we have identified the various functions that people can look for in the automobile. They can look for reliability, or they can look for comfort, or they look for style. So much so that even the color of the automobile is going to play an important part on the consumer's behavior. The more attractive the color has been made, the greater the chances of its consumer acceptance. So these are all functionalities of the product, and the organizations spend time and they conduct studies and market research and try to identify the aspects and the elements of the product which is most likely to be favored by the customer. Customer focus is, as we have said before, an essential and an important part of business today. Customer satisfaction, because of the awareness and the global market situation where the information on what is available globally is available to most consumers. Therefore, the focus has increased tremendously on the quality and on customer satisfaction. So the manufacturers now are trying to find means and ways in which to satisfy the customer and look at the aspects and the functions which the customer identifies as important. Apart from the automobile industry, there are all the other technology-related industries these days, and we spoke about the mobile telephones, the laptops, the video cameras. All these things have a very high focus on customer satisfaction. Different functionalities, improvements, technology, speed, all those things are added to make these things more attractive. And this is all done with the use of value engineering to see what value the customer is going to place on the different functions. Surveys are conducted to determine the price customers are willing to pay for the various attributes. Where cost of a function exceeds the value to the customer, either the function should be eliminated or modified. The cost, therefore, is going to be determined by the surveys and the other market information based on what customers are willing to pay for. This provides the opportunity to the organization to examine what functionalities to retain and what functionalities to eliminate. The elimination will, on the one hand, be based on market analysis, but of course the cost information is going to be equally important. Where the cost of the product or the cost of the function cannot be included as part of the price, then either that function should be somehow changed, somehow modified to reduce its cost, or it should be eliminated altogether. The need for accurate cost measurement systems. Target costing should be supported by an accurate cost system. Cost drivers should be established that determine cost of activities consumed. Arbitrary cost allocations should be avoided. If we are going to have such a focus on cost, if we are going to need to analyze cost in such a detailed manner and in different ways, and there is so much focus on cost reduction, then the cost information naturally is going to be of paramount importance. So the costing system that is in place, which is providing the cost of the product, needs to be accurate. It needs to be current. It needs to engage modern techniques. It needs to be activity-based for it to provide opportunities for cost reduction. Activities need to be costed in an accurate manner and on a timely manner. So we are saying that there is great focus on trying to reduce cost, but that cost and those decisions are only as good as the system that exists to provide details of the cost. Some items of cost and detail of cost is easy to achieve, such as material, even such as perhaps labor. But in the area of overheads and in the area of indirect costs, the system therefore needs to identify these costs and relate them to activities in an equitable and an accurate manner. And the cost drivers need to be identified accurately, and they can be then measured, and cost can be measured, and that's how cost decisions can be made and improvements and reductions brought about. Perhaps in the traditional method, the importance of the accuracy of costing system was not as great as it is under these new techniques. We are now looking at cost drivers, and we are focusing on the cost and the rate of the cost driver. So in order to establish an accurate rate of cost driver, the information needs to be carefully put together, and the system needs to be carefully designed, and accurately it needs to provide the information required for this decision making. Target costing exercise should result in reduction of cost to the organization and not only the product. So in this process of trying to identify and examine and analyze cost, targets are being set and target costing is being used to bring about all the efficiencies and bring about the different process changes and bring about the different design techniques, etc., to result in lower cost and reduced cost. So we are trying to, therefore, from the organization's point of view, reduce the cost to the organization. If the system is such that it will only help to show reduction of cost in one product, but if the cost is transferred to another product and the entire organization doesn't actually save cost, then basically the exercise is pointless and will bear no result. It's very easily done if the system is not properly monitored and properly set and designed and the information properly analyzed. Then very often it can be the case that the cost of one product is transferred to the cost of another product because of the allocation in which the costs are being attributed to products, especially the indirect costs and the fixed costs. If somehow these costs are diverted from one product to another product, then one product might appear to be profitable, but the organization as a whole will not achieve the cost reduction. So care needs to be taken that at the time of allocation, a proper basis is being used. We have said that the use of activity-based costing is going to eliminate or reduce the arbitrary allocation of costs. So there is a need to minimize and to keep to a minimum the arbitrary allocation of cost to either activities or to products. They should be directly identified with the product. The more accurate and the more directly identified the cost is, the better the chance there is of controlling and reducing this cost. Very often it can happen that the allocation basis will alter the cost from one product to another, one department to another, one function to another. But this is, from an organization perspective, a dysfunctional approach, and it doesn't provide the organization with the necessary or the required cost reduction. Illustration of target costing. The microelectronics company manufactures cameras and video equipment. It is in the process of introducing a new state-of-the-art combined digital video and still camera. The company has undertaken market research to ascertain customer perception and compare with competitors' products. As a result, target selling price has been established and a lifetime projected volume. Cost estimates have been prepared based on proposed product specifications. Let us examine how we are going to see the effect of target costing, and we are going to see the effect and benefits of target costing in an organization. We have said that this is the microelectronics company. It is going to produce new video cameras, and it is examining ways currently in which it can reduce its cost. We are saying that there is a target selling price, and even the lifetime of the product has been established. These are estimates, but nevertheless, as accurate an estimate can be made, the more reliable and real the result is going to be. So it will give you a target, it will give you an aim to achieve once you have estimates based on what will be the product life cycle and what are the target costs. The company has set a target profit margin of 30% of selling price. This has been deducted from the proposed selling price to determine the target cost. Following summary information has been presented to management, and we'll just look at that in 1 minute. If you remember our discussion on target costing, we said target costing is going to start by setting a targeted selling price. Once a target selling price has been set, then a product margin, a profit margin is deducted from the selling price. This profit margin is going to be based on the expected return on investment, and the selling price should be set after market study and based on competition and based on market environment. So once the selling price has been set and the profit margin has been set, then we deduct the profit margin from the selling price to arrive at the target cost. So let's look at the information that's presented to the management of the microelectronic company. The information presented to management is projected lifetime sales volume 300,000 units, target selling price rupees 800, target profit margin is 30%. We said earlier 30% of 800 is 240. So the target cost, which is the target price minus the profit margin, is rupees 560. So 560 is the cost per unit. The projected cost is rupees 700. So here in our example, the projected cost is 700, which is more than the target cost of rupees 560 per unit. The 560 cost has been arrived at by deducting the selling price of 800 and deducting 240, which is 30% profit margin. Here is a situation where then a team needs to get together, and the target of 560 per unit needs somehow to be attained. So a team will be formed and different groups will be put together, and they will examine ways and means how to reduce the cost. We have currently 700 rupees per unit, where the target cost should be 560. So they will keep working and coming up with ideas and solutions to reduce the cost and look at the cost at each stage until they reach the target and they can come below the target cost. The excess of projected cost over the target cost results in an intensive target costing exercise. After completion of the target costing exercise, the projected cost is rupees 555, i.e. below the target cost of rupees 560. The analysis of the projected cost before and after the target costing exercise is being shown. So this company in our example is manufacturing a combined video and a still camera. They are now going to therefore examine ways in which the cost can be reduced from 700 per unit to 560 per unit. The way in which they would need to do is for the team to get together, take perhaps a product from the competition, buy it from the market, and then to dismantle and to examine each part separately. And then they will need to identify the areas where some cost reduction can be achieved. So that could be the material that is used. It could be the process in manufacturing that is being used. It can be the design, where the design is going to result perhaps in a lower cost if it is changed. So all those different things will need to be examined, and once all that process has been followed and all the different costs reductions have been identified, then the total cost will once again be analyzed, and this process will continue until the target has been achieved or at least even reduced below the target. So let's look at the slide which shows what was the position before the target costing exercise and what happened after the exercise was completed. This slide is showing two columns: the cost as existed before the target costing exercise. There the cost was rupees 700, and we can see the breakdown of that 700. Direct materials which were bought in at 390, direct labor 100, direct machining costs 20, ordering and receiving 8, quality assurance 60, rework. Rework means where you produce faulty product and the product then once again has to be amended and altered and has to be corrected so that it can be sold as a good product. Engineering and design cost is 10, and the non-manufacturing costs were marketing of 40, distribution 30, and the after-sales service and warranty cost of 27, giving you the total cost of 700. When this is compared after the target costing exercise, it appears that direct materials which were being purchased, the cost can be reduced from 390 to 325. Perhaps cheaper materials can be used, perhaps greater discounts from some supplier arrangements can be achieved, and so the cost of materials can be reduced. Then you look at direct labor, and perhaps either the rate of labor can be reduced or labor efficiencies can be built into the process so that the cost is reduced from 100 to 80 rupees per unit. The machining costs remain the same, as it perhaps is machined in the same way. The ordering and receiving costs have been reduced from 8 to 2. And we've discussed this earlier. This could perhaps be achieved by just-in-time type of techniques, where the supplier is asked to do the examination and inspection at his own premises, and you use fewer suppliers with larger orders, and therefore reduce your cost of ordering, and perhaps have larger orders that will also reduce the cost of receiving. Quality assurance can also be reduced a little bit. The rework has been significantly reduced, and this is the advantage of target costing, that it targets where there is wastage. Rework means producing faulty products and therefore having to rework them. So if you make them correctly in the first place, there will then be no need to rework them. And that therefore has been established and processes have been identified for perhaps quality and inspection so that the rework can be reduced from 15 per unit to 6 per unit. Engineering and design has also somehow been more efficient. Marketing cost has reduced from 40 to 25. Many organizations regard marketing cost as the easiest to reduce, as it is a discretionary cost. The distribution cost has also been reduced, and so after the entire exercise, the cost is now 555 per unit, which is below the target of 560. The easiest cost sometimes considered in organizations to reduce is the marketing cost. Organizations sometimes feel, as marketing is primarily a discretionary cost, it can be controlled and therefore it can be reduced as a first cost to be reduced. This is not necessarily the best and the wisest approach. Marketing is an essential aspect of the product availability and product awareness in the consumers, and therefore reducing marketing costs should be done very carefully. Of course, you need to identify areas of waste, areas of low efficiency, areas where the value is not being obtained for the product from that marketing. So the activities can be examined very carefully to see where the highest value lies in consumer awareness as well as market availability and so forth. But nevertheless, it should be reduced after careful consideration. So therefore, now we have seen that our target cost has been achieved by this exercise, and various aspects have been covered in the exercise of target costing, and the product cost has now been reduced from 700 to 555. Let's look at some of perhaps of the things examined during the exercise. To achieve the target cost, the company establishes a project team to undertake the intense target costing exercise. In response to the need to reduce projected cost, the team starts with purchasing a video camera from its main competitors and undertake a teardown analysis. So the first thing we saw was that they were able to reduce material cost. This target exercise team was able to reduce the material cost. And the way that this was done was to use this teardown analysis. Buy a product from the market, dismantle, open, examine what products are being used, what processes, what material is being used, and perhaps the material that is being used by the organization is more expensive and less cost effective, and nevertheless using cheaper material might give the same function and the same result. So this reverse engineering process was followed in this exercise to identify and reduce the cost of material and various other costs. We said the teardown analysis is a process that involves dismantling the cameras to provide insights into potential design improvements. Value engineering is also undertaken to identify new designs that will accomplish the same functions at a lower cost. You will recall our example of the production of weapons in the frontier. They are designed to produce the same kind of functions at a much lower cost. Labor can be part of the cost, material can be part of the cost, but they are able to achieve very close to the same accuracy and the same functions. And if they have the same functions as the original weapons, then this is value engineering, and they have produced products with a lower cost, providing the same functions and the same value to the buyer. The outcome is a significant reduction in projected direct materials, labor, and rework costs. Next, the team engages in functional analysis. This process indicated several functions included in the prototype are not valued by the customers. We have said that value to the customer needs to be examined, and any process or any function which does not add value to the customer can be eliminated. Next, the functional analysis results in further cost reductions. The team now turns their attention to redesigning the production and support processes. They redesign the ordering and receiving process by reducing the number of suppliers and working closely with the smaller suppliers. And that's how they were able to reduce the cost of receiving and ordering. When the projected cost is below the target cost, the exercise is concluded. The various techniques that we discussed are shown here to have been followed in this exercise. The reverse engineering, the value engineering, and things like where the cost is broken down and the product is dismantled and it is looked at in detail and try to identify where efficiencies, improvements can be brought about. In addition, we saw that the rework cost was reduced, and we have mentioned that rework should be regarded as a complete waste. Rework is a faulty product, a product not fit for use, and it has to be isolated, it has to be processed again to some extent to make it sellable, to make it usable. So rework is a complete waste, and the idea, of course, and the aim under best practice would be to have rework cost as zero. So there should be a zero defect policy. The aim should be that there should be no defect and all products that are produced should be usable and marketable, and this cost and this waste should be reduced. So in our example, we have seen that the organization is able to significantly reduce the cost of rework. The other interesting cost they have reduced is the cost of ordering and receiving. Techniques for inventory management and just-in-time techniques are going to be used and deployed to achieve this kind of cost saving. The example states that the team started to work with fewer suppliers, giving them a larger order, so it guarantees them a size of business that it enables them to carry out the orders according to the timing and needs of the buyer. So they were able to have fewer suppliers, therefore larger order sizes, and therefore less orders and less deliveries received to reduce the disruption and ordering cost. So this exercise continues until the cost has been driven below the target cost. That's when the exercise concludes. We are now going to talk about Kaizen costing, widely used by Japanese organizations as a mechanism for reducing and managing costs. Kaizen is the Japanese word for making small improvements to a process rather than through large innovations. The process of innovation and the process of cost management of the Japanese has excelled and exceeded and have demonstrated an improvement on the processes being followed by their main competitors, the Western countries. So the Western countries were forced then to look at the practices of the Japanese to try to identify how they are achieving many of their cost reductions and quality improvements. And Kaizen costing is one of them. Under Kaizen costing, the concept is to look for small improvements. They don't look for large, major changes of design. Those are a different technique. Those are used elsewhere. But Kaizen is looking at making small improvements to the process to reduce cost. These could be very small improvements such as and simple as the movement of goods on the factory floor. It may be that the store of inventory is far removed from the point and manufacturing place. So the goods are stored and the store is removed and is at a distance, and it has to be transported every time for manufacturing to take place. And it's possible that there's a lot of time and resource being wasted in carrying the goods from the store to the manufacturing point, to the machines, and this is costing labor and time and so forth. A very small improvement would be to have a small store near the manufacturing site, near the machines, and to move the goods once for a period of production. Let's say perhaps 3 days or 1 week, something like that. And so instead of moving goods every time and every day, goods are moved, let's say, once a week. And 1 week material is brought and stored near the manufacturing site, and it is used over there and easily accessible and easily reachable. And this is also going to reduce cost. So this is a small example of Kaizen costing, that you have moved the material store and have a sub-store near the machines. Of course, all kinds of controls and quality checks will need to be accordingly adjusted. Another example would be where goods are being received and where perhaps the goods are being received and then transported and inspected and then sent into the warehouse. So the reception and the inspection and the warehouse, if there's a big distance between them, then that movement is going to take time and cost and perhaps result in wastage and result in breakages and things of that nature. So bringing that about and changing the process so that the goods are received and inspected nearby, and the store is also nearby, so they are transported from the reception to the inspection to the warehouse. This can also result in cost savings. So these are examples of small Kaizen type costing processes where they are identifying small areas of improvements, and you do that on a continuous basis, and that is going to result in cost savings, and therefore it is going to enhance the profitability of the organization and the products. Target costing is applied during the design stage, whereas Kaizen costing is applied during the manufacturing stage. Kaizen costing focuses on the production process, and cost reductions are derived primarily through increased efficiency of production process. So where we discussed about the target costing, that a team has been set up and the team is looking at the design and they look at the competitors' products and they analyze and look at the details, all that is being done at the process stage. So target costing is the technique used to reduce cost at the processing and the planning stage. Once the planning is complete and manufacturing has started, then Kaizen costing that's the point where Kaizen costing is applied. Kaizen costing is applied to the processes to reduce the cost of the process that actually is followed. And we gave small examples. So small process improvements resulting in cost savings, this is Kaizen costing. Kaizen costing focuses on production process, and reductions are derived primarily through increased efficiency of production process. Kaizen costing relies heavily on employee empowerment. Workers are given responsibility to improve process and reduce cost. Employee empowerment is also a very popular term these days. A lot of employers talk about employee empowerment. Employee empowerment is also something that is derived primarily from the Japanese management practices. What this means is that the employees should be made aware and they should understand the work that they are doing. The better they understand, they are the ones closest to the manufacturing to the action to where processes are being performed. And if they are aware and they understand the reasons and what the processes are, then they are the best people to suggest improvements and changes and efficiencies. So employee empowerment means to enable the employees and to ensure they understand the processes so that they are able to make recommendations for improvements. So primarily, the responsibility for bringing about process improvements will lie with the employees who are conducting that process. If they are trained, if they understand, then they will find ways of doing things better. So doing things better, doing things quicker, making processes more efficient, this is going to arise from employee empowerment, and the employees and the people who are performing the functions are the best people to suggest the improvements. And this is what has been improved, and employee empowerment works, and it has reduced, in many cases, costs fairly significantly. Activity-based management. The term activity-based management, ABM, or activity-based cost management, ABCM, are used to describe cost management applications of ABC, which is activity-based costing. 3 stages are required. 1, identify major activities that take place. 2, assign costs to cost pools, cost centers for each activity. And thirdly, to determine the cost driver for each major activity. We spoke earlier about activity-based costing. Activity-based costing was to divide the activities of the organization into separate activities, identifiable activities, and to measure the cost of the activity. And now, from that costing, the system of management can also be implemented. So, the activity-based management costing, the stages are similar. We need to identify the activities, we need to identify the cost pools, and then we need to determine the cost drivers for each cost pool. The way the management is going to work is that if you can control the activity, then you can control the cost. It is basically the activity that needs to be controlled. An example would be if an organization is moving from a distribution channel where distributors are used to direct distribution. Then the direct distribution activity is going to be examined. What is the activity? The movement of goods, the transfer of inventory from the central warehouse to perhaps the smaller warehouses, and the acquisition of trucks and transport vehicles to transport from the smaller warehouses to the market, and the engagement of the distribution force and the vehicles, the maintenance and the drivers and so forth. So this will be looking at the activities, and then the cost of each activity would be examined. Normally, we would be examining cost by categories such as salaries and such as stationery, such as travel. Here we will be looking at the activity of transporting goods, making one trip of one sector of the market, and what is the cost. And then determining the cost driver, and then trying to control the activity by controlling the cost driver. ABM focuses on managing a business on the basis of activities performed. ABM is based on the fact that activities consume costs, hence managing activities will manage costs. ABM provides information on what activities are performed, what they cost, why undertaken, and how well performed. We are going to look at an analysis of what the cost information would look like under a traditional system and under ABM. And we can see on the left-hand side, the traditional analysis shows the division of expense as salaries, stationery, travel, telephone, depreciation, so forth. Total of 580. Whereas under ABM, the same analysis would be looking at the activities such as preparing quotations, receiving customer orders, assessing credit, expediting, resolving customer problems. So the same kind of information when looked under activity-based management is looked under activities. So activities are managed, the cost can be managed. This is a comparison of how activity-based management focuses on the activities and the cost of the activities. And it has been found that really if you want to reduce something such as salary, then the appropriate way would be to look at the activity of the personnel that they are performing and how the activity can be controlled and reduced, and that's how you can reduce the cost of the salary, and so on for the other functions. So that's the concept of activity-based management, and that helps in cost reduction and profit enhancement. That's all for this lecture. Thank you very much.